Some breaking news here out of New York. Now, recently, a New York judge had hit Trump with a fine for violating a court order to comply with a subpoena for documents issued by New York Attorney General Letitia James. Trump was ordered to pay $10,000 a day until he complied and eventually racked up $110,000 in fines. Trump's team appealed the order, and today, a New York appellate court has upheld the $110,000 fine. According to Letitia James, once again, the courts have ruled that Donald Trump is not above the law. For years, he tried to stall and thwart our lawful investigations into his financial dealings, but today's decision sends a clear message that there are consequences for abusing the legal system. We will not be bullied or dissuaded from pursuing justice. According to the panel of 5 judges on the appeals court, the $110,000 fine was, quote, a proper exercise of the Manhattan Supreme Court judge's authority, and that the fine was, quote, not excessive or otherwise improper under the particular circumstances. Luckily, Trump had already paid the fine, which he was hoping to get overturned with his appeal. Now, of course, elephant in the room, this is not a lot of money for Donald Trump. However, what is a lot of money is the $250 million lawsuit that Letitia James filed against Trump, his company, and 3 of his children, Don Jr., Eric, and Ivanka, accusing them of fraud by grossly overstating the value of Trump-related assets for more favorable loans and insurance terms, and then understating the value of those same assets when it came to taxes. In addition to the monetary damages, that suit would also permanently bar Trump and his children from serving as officers of a company in New York, and permanently bar the Trump companies from doing business in the entire state of New York. And of course, this isn't the only legal issue that Trump is currently contending with. All eyes are on Fulton County, Georgia right now, where District Attorney Fani Willis has said that a decision on whether to charge Donald Trump and others in that investigation is, quote, imminent. Just days ago, the special grand jury returned its report to District Attorney Willis, meaning that the next step here is a decision on whether or not to indict. I spoke with former federal prosecutor Glenn Kirshner as part of our new legal series, The Legal Breakdown, available only on YouTube, and here's what he had to say as to whether there's any possible defense that Trump could surface in this case. But we're talking about a crime where Trump is on tape asking Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger to find enough votes for the express purpose of anointing him the winner of an election that he lost. Votes that didn't exist, imaginary votes. I mean, as clear a crime as you could possibly find. Is there any defense for Trump here? Is there any reason why DA Willis would choose not to indict if and when we find out that the jury has recommended indictment?
There is zero defense that Donald Trump has. There is zero reason, as best I can tell, that Fani Willis would have to decline to indict Donald Trump. Brian, when I had the good fortune of trying cases, including RICO cases, in which I had wiretap evidence, I called it a press play trial. I pressed play on the old, cassette recording machine, tells you how old I am, and you would hear the defendant, who was sitting across the courtroom from the jury, committing the crime on tape, on a recording. That's what we have from Donald Trump's just find me 11,780 votes and corruptly declare me the winner. And he threatened Brad Raffensperger that in substance, you could be prosecuted if you don't do that. I mean, talk about a gross abuse of power on top of the Georgia state election crimes Donald Trump was committing. There is zero chance he won't be indicted in my book. There is zero chance, almost zero chance, he won't be convicted. I think the biggest question is, upon conviction, does Donald Trump land in prison, or do they give him some sort of a pass by putting him on home detention? And of course, that's in addition to the special counsel Jack Smith's ongoing investigation into both January 6th insurrection and the stolen documents case at Mar-a-Lago. Now, as far as January 6th goes, it looks like the investigation is ramping up, considering the latest move by Jack Smith was to issue a subpoena for Mike Pence, who was Trump's own vice president. And if there was any doubt about the extent to which issuing a subpoena to Mike Pence could hurt Trump, here again is Glenn Kirshner in one of our most recent episodes discussing the principal way in which this could be used against Donald Trump. Mike Pence has been subpoenaed by Jack Smith, the special counsel overseeing the January 6th investigation. Now, in what way could this be most damaging to Trump? Like, what information could Jack Smith seek that could hurt Trump the most? So one thing that we know is that Donald Trump waged a relentless pressure campaign against Mike Pence. Primarily, what he was trying to accomplish was he was trying to convince Mike Pence to violate the law, the Electoral Count Act, to refuse to certify Joe Biden's win, as at least a step on the road to having Donald Trump installed corruptly for a second term. So he was urging Mike Pence to break a law. And when you urge a government official to violate a federal law, you are involved in criminal activity yourself. It is an attempt to violate the law. Every crime that's on the books also has a crime attached to it, attempt to commit that crime. That's just one example. But because Jack Smith is now as close as he can get to the president, the vice president has been served a grand jury subpoena to testify in the criminal investigation into Donald Trump's responsibility for the insurrection. This is actually a pretty big deal. And it feels like this may be the last stop on the road to a Trump indictment.
And finally, on the Mar-a-Lago documents case, while Republicans fall over themselves trying to create this false equivalency between Biden and Trump, just remember, in Biden's case, documents were discovered by Joe Biden's team, which then immediately called the National Archives to return those documents, as well as volunteering to have the sweep of his home and office in the event that more documents were found. In Trump's case, the National Archives had requested hundreds of classified documents for well over a year. Trump refused, had his lawyers sign false attestations that they were returned, eventually warranted a federal magistrate to issue a search warrant, which was executed by the FBI, and literally found exactly what they were looking for, only for Trump to then issue contradictory excuses like the fact that he issued blanket declassifications, which he didn't, and also that the documents, which were apparently just declassified, were also planted by the FBI. So yeah, for those of you out there still thinking that these situations are in any way analogous, you may just be living on a different planet. All of which is to say that Trump does not have a lot to look forward to on the legal front, which is why, by the way, he was so quick to announce his presidential campaign. He knows that if he can make himself a candidate for office, then he'll be able to malign any investigations as a partisan witch hunt to hurt his chances of winning. Of course, he ignores the fact that these investigations are already ongoing and decides that so long as you declare yourself a candidate, you should have carte blanche to do whatever you want with zero accountability. Pretty rich coming from the guy whose entire 2016 campaign was predicated on the purported criminal activity of Hillary Clinton. So look, I know that Donald Trump seems to be always able to avoid accountability, but he's never contended with investigations like this, nor has he committed crimes so out in the open like this. Perhaps against my better judgment, I have some degree of faith that our justice system will work, and whether it's Fulton County, whether it's New York, whether it's the DOJ, the fact is that we'll know pretty soon whether or not that's the case. Before you go, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more, please make sure to subscribe to my channel. You can click the thumbnail right here on this screen. And if you want to support my work even further, the best way is to subscribe to my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. There you can check out my interviews with major players in the world of politics, including President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, Elizabeth Warren, Katie Porter, Jamie Raskin, and so many more. Plus other interviews that live exclusively on the podcast. That link is also right here on this screen, or just search No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen wherever you listen to podcasts.